Disney's live-action Snow White had all the makings of a classic revival. So why isn't it the fairest of them all? And what could they have done differently? A major point of contention is Disney's approach to the roles of the seven dwarfs. Instead of casting actors with dwarfism, the studio chose to take a CGI approach. This has come under attack on all fronts. Actor Peter Dinklage initially criticized Disney for continuing this trope of the seven dwarves at all, stating, "You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave." However, other actors from the community have expressed their disappointment in taking another role away from Little People. Many have said that this choice to favor CGI made Little People feel disregarded and erased, and removed an opportunity to provide authentic representation and educate audiences. Casting real actors with dwarfism could have offered a more respectful and inclusive portrayal, allowing for genuine performances that resonate with audiences. Moreover, it would have provided much-needed visibility and employment opportunities for actors with dwarfism in the industry. By opting for CGI, Disney may have inadvertently undermined the importance of representation and the unique contributions that actors with dwarfism bring to such roles. Interestingly, though, the seven dwarfs do appear in the original Brothers Grimm fairy tale. They are actually intelligent and practical characters. They are also supernatural creatures that are rife throughout German and other European folklore. There is no reason why Disney couldn't lean more into the original story and its folklore and create truly magical beings that aren't necessarily perceived as a backward step in modern acting roles. Sure, the movie made a small, confusing attempt to give the CGI dwarves magical powers, but it wasn't particularly clear why casting Little People and making their characters closer to an authentic folklore idea of mystical dwarves, rather than the Hollywood expectation, could have provided both more magic to the movie and more jobs to the actors who are already struggling. Not only that, but audiences have come to expect a level of realism in live-action adaptations, and this CGI-heavy workaround felt lazy and performative. Instead of being inclusive, it came off as overly sanitized and disconnected from the community it claimed to respect. Real actors would have added emotional depth and character authenticity that digital creations simply can't replicate. One of the most criticized decisions in the live-action remake was the overuse of CGI effects. This ranges from the animals Snow White interacts with the full-blown characters. Not only that, but there seemed to be a disconnect across costume design and set design. Disney has always been known for its wondrous, magical aesthetics, but in Snow White, the visuals weren't quite the whimsical, enchanting spectacle we've come to expect. While the costumes and set had standout moments, they often felt disjointed or too grounded for a fairy tale world. Critics have described the film's aesthetic as having an inconsistent tone that swung dramatically between fantasy and gritty realism. The problem isn't to do with ambition, it's the movie's execution. Some costumes appeared overly theatrical, while others seemed almost like cosplay. The CGI designs for the dwarf characters were also so cartoony that they pulled viewers out of the immersive experience. When creating a live-action fairy tale, cohesion is key. Everything from the lighting to the props needs to support the world building. Music is a cornerstone of Disney classics. Snow White is no different. Its original songs, like Someday My Prince Will Come, are still pop culture staples after 9 decades, for a reason. Some critics noted that the new musical moments in the remake lacked the impact of the original's iconic songs. Introducing new compositions failed to capture the same magic and left some audiences underwhelmed. Critics noted that the musical tone felt inconsistent, lacking both the emotional highs and memorable melodies that audiences expect from a Disney musical. It has been noted by many that the songs seem to lack staying power, describing the songs as forgettable. Well, this has been a truly forgettable experience. It's also been noted that they were misaligned with the story's pacing, with many of them feeling like filler or overly self-aware commentary. Keeping a few iconic songs untouched would have preserved some nostalgic magic, while new music could have complemented the story, not competed with it. The original fairy tale was no longer than a few pages, which was enough to create the 83-minute adaptation in 1937. Now, the new movie has had to put an additional filler to push it to a nearly 2-hour runtime. With their choices to change so many elements of the 1937 version, such as redefining the princess, updating the themes, and reworking the supporting characters, the story became overstretched. Fans have pointed out that the movie tries to do too much, which ends up making a story that doesn't do any one thing particularly well. Subplots about Snow White's political ambitions and added backstories for the dwarfs and villains feel underdeveloped and overwhelm the story rather than enhancing it. Disney's first Snow White movie kept the original fairy tale simple, with universal themes of love, jealousy, kindness, and redemption. It didn't need multiple layers of political intrigue or elaborate world building to resonate. By trying to drag a simple children's tale into more mature subject matters within every facet of the story, the live-action version got so lost it had to take shelter in a tiny cottage. Some have even joked that the movie felt like a Disney Plus series stuffed into a 2-hour film. Modernizing the Disney adaptations of fairy tales is a delicate dance, and with Snow White, the studio made a misstep. Anyone aware of how the original parable-length stories have been changed and expanded on for the movies knows that many of Disney's takes on classics were created in an era where certain expectations were placed on women. As such, this approach no longer holds up to modern audience scrutiny. While it is definitely the right move to bring storytelling into the 21st century, Disney has given themselves an extremely challenging task with recreating their classic tales. In an effort to craft a more empowered and self-reliant heroine, the film ended up stripping away much of the original's charm. Snow White was reworked to be a strong political figure aiming to become a leader, which is a dramatic pivot from both Disney's and the Brothers Grimm's gentle and kind-hearted princess, who finds joy in small acts of care and kindness. This attempt to shift away from the traditional damsel in distress narrative is commendable in theory, but poorly executed. Many movie critics noted that this shift in characterization has led the movie to seemingly suffer an identity crisis, with the movie making what seems like only half-hearted attempts to modernize the story. Fans are unsure whether it wants to be a political allegory or a magical fairy tale. The original 1937 film is cherished for its emotional sincerity, timeless music, and archetypal simplicity. A better approach would have been to retain Snow White's kindness and innocence while giving her a stronger voice and more agency. Instead, the film replaces her core identity entirely, losing what made her such a timeless character. What Disney could have done instead is double down on timeless emotions: wonder, fear, love, and growth. These are the core ingredients of any good fairy tale, and they're what made the original so universally loved. Updating Snow White shouldn't have meant abandoning the emotional notes that have kept her story alive for nearly a century. Perhaps the biggest lesson Disney should take from this remake is the importance of respecting nostalgia. We'll be fine. Nostalgia never goes out of style. Their original adaptation of Snow White was groundbreaking in 1937, not just for being the first full-length animated film, but for its sincerity and heart. That emotional legacy matters. When fans feel that a beloved story is being used as a vessel for ideology rather than storytelling, they disengage. Many fans were understanding of the reasons for updating themes or refreshing characters, but what they did have a problem with was being talked down to or feeling like their childhood favorites were being erased. One of the universal criticisms is that the movie definitely feels performatively progressive. They have made changes for change's sake, without any real thought going into how they bring the almost 90-year-old movie up to date. In other words, changes were made not to enhance the story, but to check boxes. It makes us wonder whether Disney should have left their original alone and perhaps created a brand new live-action story that fully embraced the modern freedoms and attitudes of today. What do you think? Could these changes have given Snow White the fairy tale ending it deserved? Do you have your own ideas about how Disney could reimagine its classics? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more deep dives into Hollywood's hits and misses, stick with us at Movie Recap Pro. Thanks for watching. See you next time.